Hi, I'm Mitch Gallagher. Welcome to the Sweetwater Minute. This time on the Sweetwater Minute, we have a very special guest. Chick Corea has joined us.
Hey, man.
Thanks for coming in. We're glad to have you here at Sweetwater.
Thank you.
You're here on behalf of Moog.
Yes.
You're going to be doing a workshop tonight, I hear.
That's
a Q&A kind of thing. Very cool. And some congratulations are in order. You had 5 Grammy nominations this year, and you picked up 2 wins, bringing the total to 20. Amazing. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Really a stellar achievement. Really amazing. You have to be one of the, I would say one of the busiest musicians I've ever interviewed or talked to. I mean, in 2012, you had 4 albums and several albums in each year before that. You got multiple tours going on simultaneously. So tomorrow night you're playing with Gary Burton. Is that right?
We have one isolated date, actually. Gary and I did 3 or 4 weeks of really nice touring with the Harlem String Quartet months ago. But then we had this one isolated date that we're going to do, so we're going to pick that up. Then I have a solo date to do, but then I have a couple of weeks with my new band Vigil.
Right. And then also some dates with Stanley Clarke.
Yes, which we just finished a week in Los Angeles. Kind of a jam session week. We have a trio, and then invite others. My wife Gail comes up to sing, and
nice.
We invited some young players to play with us in LA. And then we're going to Stanley and I are going to take that trio to Japan.
And then some dates with Bela Fleck.
Yeah, which we've already completed.
Okay.
I finished the tour with Bela. We're going to do some more next January. Bela and I are going to put out a live recording from the 2 tours that we did.
Nice. And then you have a trio with Brady Blade and Christian McBride.
Yeah, Christian McBride and Brian Blade. We did a bunch of touring last year, and that was our second long tour together. We're going to do some live, compile some of the live recording from that as well. That was a lot of fun too. Right.
So you've worked with so many different musicians and such a high level of musicians. What is it that helps you choose the musicians that you work with? What do you look for? For example, with your new band, with Vigil, you've got young players that you're working with there. What drew you to those particular players?
Well, I guess if you looked at a schedule, or if you looked on my website and you saw all the things I do, it looks like it all mashes in together. It actually doesn't. There's the projects are, each one has its own integrity to it and is its own thing and develops its own repertoire as well. And as far as choosing musicians, it's a lot of different ways. There's nothing rote about it. Like, for instance, with Stanley Clarke, we've known each other since early 70s.
Sure.
When we put Return to Forever together. So that's an ongoing relationship. And when we talk, we might come up with different projects,
Right.
With my new band, most of the guys there I knew. Like my young drummer, Marcus Gilmore, I've known him since he was 14 years old.
Okay.
And so we played together. He worked with me on my piano concerto project in 2006 in Europe. So I find musicians different ways, and we find each other too.
Right.
You know what I mean? You know how that works. Yeah.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. Is it the same thing with, you've worked in so many different musical styles, free jazz, fusion, straight ahead jazz, you've done classical kinds of things, solo with groups, electric groups, acoustic groups. What is it that draws you to each particular project as you're moving forward? Is it the musicians you're involved with, or are you writing music that leads you in those directions?
It's my interest. I mean, my interest in things just moves forward from one thing to another. It seems to me, it seems like a really natural kind of a progression. I'm rich in friends, in musical friends, in musical relationships. As my life has continued, that's some of the more treasured part of my life.
Right.
So, that's there for me to draw on. Like Bela Fleck, for instance, I've known Bela for good 15, 20 years now, since he was a real young musician, and our relationship grew until we did a project together. And But each project, comes out of some interest of mine in music. I don't think in terms of what kind of music I want to make so much as an effect that I'd like to create, either with a musical partner or a band or a composition, and it's an effect I'd like to create. It's like I want to take a freer approach and put it maybe in a more organized, composed form. So that might take a certain approach. Like my new band is a little bit like that. My new band, I'm still working with it. It's a work in progress. That always is. But to try to figure out how to balance up the two elements that I really love, which is just free improvisation and then structured composition to orchestrate. So I find that a quintet like I've got now gives me a really good palette to work from. It's a small group, but it's not. It's big enough that we've got a combination of timbres for me to compose with and think about how to put things together.
Sure.
So there's no rote way that these projects come about. It just kind of keeps rolling, and I do enjoy just performing and playing and putting a lot of music out.
Sure. Yeah, well, you're very prolific.
I enjoy that.
That's clear. Yeah, wonderful. So you mentioned free improvisation, and I was looking back at an article that you wrote for Keyboard Magazine a number of years ago about the myth of improvisation. And a lot of our viewers are musicians and are obviously involved in music making, and it really caught my attention what you were talking about with the way that improvisation is really based on what you choose not to know, and what you choose to have be by chance or have be by spur of the moment inspiration kind of thing. Can you talk a little bit about your thoughts on that and maybe expand on that a little bit?
Well, there's a balance between that. I think we feel best, or at least I feel best. I think it's true of everybody. You feel best when you're in good, easy control of your own motion and your own life and your own thoughts. You're generating them. You're generating them.
Right.
I mean, it's nice to accept experience and like from others. Other musicians will play stuff and you take it in. Or when you're listening to music, you're being an effect of the music. But you're choosing to be the effect. So the idea is choice. So in improvisation or in performing, when you go on stage or when you want to make a piece of music, there's that kind of choice balance between whether you're going to decide that you're not going to plan anything, or you're going to decide you're going to plan everything. You want that this piece or this set of music or this song to take a certain shape and create a certain emotion. And do you know what I mean? In which case you get into shaping it that way, and you go out with that prediction, and then within that you create your freedoms. So there's freedoms and there's barriers. You could say the barrier is the composition. You make that fixed.
Sure.
Well, when any kind of written music, when you play classical music, for instance, imagine the great classical musicians who play Beethoven and Mozart and any wonderful written music. There's a score there, and they play those notes right from the score. But the freedoms are that moment, how they interpret that music.
Sure.
So that's their freedom,
Right.
So there's this balance between what you choose to be free and not choose but do in the moment, and then what plan you've set for yourself. And it's an endless variation. So there's nothing you can fix about it,
Right.
But that's the way I see it. That's the way I approach it. Like I have some piano solo shows coming up, for instance, and because I've been doing other things, I haven't particularly prepared any particular piano solo to play. So I take the piano solo show as an opportunity to play more freely. So
Okay.
I'll go on stage and without a particularly planned program and just let things roll.
So when you're doing that, are you drawing from a vocabulary that you have in your head? Is it truly just of the moment that it just appears?
Well, the vocabulary is, I'm not sure.
A framework that you're drawing from, or that you're, whether it's a scale, or whether you choose it's going to be a mood, or a key, or a set of changes. Or...
Well, again, there's an openness. I mean, I have an overall intention every time I perform to want people to take away something positive. Mm-hmm. So that's a general thing. I don't want to kill them or scare them or make them get sick. I want something pleasant to happen, some aesthetic experience to happen for them. But then how you do that is infinitely changeable, and I don't think about it. I think it's not that good an idea to be thinking during your performance. You go out and you decide. I decide. Well, I'm going to go and have some fun, do this, and try it this way, and then just go out and do it. And then take things as they come. It's an interaction with the audience all the time. Mm-hmm. When there's musicians there, it's an interaction with them. That's the fun of it.
Right.
I figure there's got to be about half and half, like half that I'm sure and that I'm controlling and being causative about, and the other half is just coming at me that I'm kind of dealing with and making something out of.
Right. So do you draw a hard line between improvisation and composition, or in your mind are they the same and different aspects of the same thing?
Well, yeah, I mean, when you do something, you compose it of the moment, or it takes you 2 seconds to think about it, or it takes 5 minutes, or you work on it for an hour. I mean, I don't know, if we call it spontaneous improvisation, you have to really decide not to know what you're going to play, and you do something that, and then take that and do something with it.
Sure.
Right. So, it's an interesting subject, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. That was why I wanted to bring it up with you, because after reading the article and now hearing what you're saying, it's a.
Like sometimes you play a game with yourself by the other night I was playing with my trio in Los Angeles with Stanley Clark and young Marcus Gilmore, and it was Herbie Hancock's birthday. So we invited Herbie, and he had just come in town, and wow, he came down to the club, so he sat in and played with us. And when I play with Herbie, especially the kind of relationship that we have, there's this aspect of bouncing off of one another, so I'm never thinking about what I'm doing. I'm seeing what Herbie's doing, and I respond to that like as an answer. Mm-hmm. And we started talking about it, and he says that he does the same thing. That he waits till I do something, and then he responds to it.
Right.
So I thought, well, we're both responding to it. Is anybody doing anything?
Clearly somebody is.
Yeah. And then when I play by my solo by myself, I find I can play that same game. I'll play something, and then respond to it, and keep a roll going that way. Right.
You in looking back through interviews and things with you, a word that comes up a lot is intention, and you used it earlier here as well when we were talking. Can you talk a little bit about that when you're improvising, when you're composing a piece? Do you have an intention in mind for that? Are you trying to convey something to the audience specific as it comes out, or is it just happening, or how does that work?
I don't like the feeling of life just happening. Mm-hmm. I think to me it's a very natural thing to intend something to happen. I don't think anything happens without intention. Mm-hmm. But if you mask the intention, or you say you didn't intend it, or when you actually did, or you have to be responsible for your actions. So if you're not intending it and you do something, who's to blame?
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you have to trust yourself with your intention. Yeah, I think music is beautiful when it's intended. I mean, I was speaking to Bernie, my friend Bernie, my sound engineer, today in our drive about Mozart and Bach and Charlie Parker, because I'm reading a biography of Charlie Parker and what an innovator he was. And I noticed that one trait of some of the hero musicians of mine, like Bird and like Mozart and like Bach, is that they put out a tremendous amount of output. So there's got to be some intention behind that. It doesn't just happen. They're not being led by some rabbit in the yard. They've got sometimes it's called passion, you know what I mean? You get interested in something, then you really want to do it. You really want to find out you write one piece and then you want to find out, well, now let me try it another way and let me do it again. And then when you make music, I do a performance and I see a result and I like it, but I want it to be even better. So I keep working on it because, do you know what I mean? So it's an intention.
Right.
It's a goal. It's something that you pursue. It's life. It's how life works, I think.
Yeah, right. Another word that comes up frequently is communication. And you talk a lot about communicating with the audience. How do musicians foster that? Or how can somebody improve the communication they have as opposed to seeing the audience as something separate from what they're doing?
Well, you have to practice doing it, and you have to learn something about it. I mean, to me, all life is communication. It's what we're doing now. When you wake up in the morning and you're all by yourself, you're still communicating. You're communicating with your bed and with your shower and with your clothing and physical things you communicate with, and you communicate. Basic communication is between people, though, and minds and ideas, and it produces physical things like pianos and chairs, right?
Yeah, right.
But everything is communication, so it behooves us to get good at it, you know, and rather than just kind of go through life feeling like you're being swept along with no intention.
Right.
Yeah, so communicating is the game of life, it looks like to me. That's what it seems like to me. So you just to realize that and start to practice it is I think a really good thing. I personally learned a lot about the concept of communication from L. Ron Hubbard, who takes that as a very major kind of mechanical factor in the life of any being, any person, is communication. What is it? How's it broken down, and so forth? And then how can you improve your ability to do it?
Right.
But you know, when we talk about charisma or talent or intention or any of it, it expresses itself through one's ability to make it happen, which is communication. That's the way I kind of think about the term.
Right. That's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you another good example. Sometimes I talk to my musicians about this when you're having sound problems with a band. I mean, when you work with electronics and you're working with electric instruments, acoustic instruments, you're in a big hall or whatever, or a small club or whatever. You got a sound system, you got monitors. It's complex. It can get complex, but for me, what has to happen with a band is the band has to be in real good rapport with one another. Like, for instance, mechanically, you have to be able to hear one another. That's the purpose of monitors and everything.
Sure.
But before monitors, which is just something that takes a sound and brings it closer to you, what about trying to like if I were talking to you like this and my voice was kind of soft, you might not be able to hear me say.
Sure. Limits the communication.
Yeah, so instead of getting a monitor, turn around to you and talk a little louder. So, so take that concept with a band and geographically position each other so that we can be in better rapport. So that starts out with it. So I sometimes map out with my musicians the fact that, for instance, just to take a trio, piano, bass, and drums, that if everyone's responsible for that rapport, the way it works out is you've got a lot of different communications happening. Like I have to make sure that the bass player and the drummer hear what I'm doing, not just wait for them to hear me, but can you hear me? All right. So that's two communications, right? Then I have to make sure that I hear them. I can't hear the bass. Can you move a little closer or turn up or? So that's four communications, right? Bass player to me, drummer to me to the bass player, me to the drummer. That's four communications.
Right.
Now, the bass player and the drummer also have the same 4 communications. So that's 4 times 3.
Sure.
That's 12 really important communications. If you drop one out, it weakens it. And as a musician, you know how good it feels to be in good rapport with the musicians that you're playing with. And that's just a mechanical factor of being able to hear one another,
Right.
So it's real useful, I find, to use communication as a conceptual basis for trying to get to happen what we're trying to get to happen, which is music.
I think the other part of that is the listening aspect of it. You have to be open and have your ears open to what's going on as well. Do you have suggestions for musicians trying to develop that ability to listen to what's happening, especially when you have a larger group or larger ensemble?
Yeah, get a good night's sleep, eat good nutrition, and stay awake. I don't know. You can't bang someone into being interested in something, but it's a beautiful gift. Interest is you could call it a gift. It's something that no one can make you have. But it's the thing that makes life is your interest. So when you're on stage with your musicians, no one can tell you, look, get interested.
Right.
Right. But being interested is a good thing. It shows a desire to play the game, a desire to be there doing it, and it's a spirit. It's a nice spirit to do. I mean, again, you can just become aware of it, and again, like if you find, I find that if I find myself kind of logging around a little bit on a subject or something, that I can think of that concept and just intend myself back to life again. So there's a simple, easy, doesn't cost anything.
Right.
Just wake up and get going.
Right. Have that focus. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. You're best known as a keyboard player and a composer, but you also play drums.
Yeah, I mess with the drums. I love the drums.
You played drums on a Wayne Shorter album, Supernova.
I got famous doing that. Yeah.
Right. How do you think the playing the drums impacts or informs what you do on the keyboards?
Again, it's just an interest that I have. That's burning interest. I love the drumming of all kinds, and in my groups and in the music that I love, the drummer is so important, and the way the drums makes the music move and makes the music feel. So I keep a drum set by my piano all the time, and I mess around myself, but I have a passion with drumming of all kinds.
All right, that's great. So you're here on behalf of Moog, and we've got behind us a Voyager, the 61 key.
Yeah, I hadn't seen that before. It's a wild-looking fella. It's got ability to do patches over there, which wow,
right.
I could spend weeks with that.
Lots of fun. So what is it that draws you to the Moog instruments? What is it about those?
Well, my introduction to that, I believe the first time I ever heard a mini Moog was Jan Hammer. I went to the Felt Forum, I remember the evening, and heard the Mahavishnu Orchestra perform. And there was Jan, battling with the guitar.
Right.
And I thought, that's wild. He's playing like lines like that, like a saxophone player or a guitar player on this instrument. And I liked the sound of it. So I got one and started messing with that concept of playing lines. It's a single line instrument mainly, and that's how I discovered the Mini Moog.
Yeah, so you see that as primarily a soloing instrument for creating melodies. I mean, obviously you can't play chords with it. You're using it with a delay as well, correct? With the Moog delay?
Well, yeah. The delay just seems to make it sound nice. But yeah, I use it mainly as a solo instrument. I mean, I know it's used to play bass lines too, really beautiful bass lines. But I don't know. However it's constructed, the way it's constructed always had had a beautiful, unique sound, and it's relatively easy to manipulate. You got the knobs. There's a few main ones. I mean, you know, I'm not a technical guy in terms of synthesizers, but I was able to find out how to use the Mini Moog pretty quickly. Well, that's not a Mini Moog anymore.
Right. It's a descendant of it. Well, this is kind of the classic setup, right? The Rhodes with the
Yeah,
on top.
yeah, I like that. You know, I've got my piano-like chordal instrument here, and my Mini Moog sound on the top, and
Can do both at once.
yeah,
Right. Wonderful.
yeah.
Chick, thanks so much for coming in.
Sure,
It's been
man.
such a pleasure to have you here. Such an honor to have you here. We're looking forward to seeing you put these to work tonight. Some Q&A with the audience as well.
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot of fun.
Okay, man.
Thanks a
Yeah,
lot.
thanks for your interest.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, pleasure.
I'm Mitch Gallagher. Thanks for joining me for the Sweetwater Minute.